foremost, guys, I'd just like to say thank you very much. Okay, so my name is Ruth Brazier, and I'm joined here by three fantastic coaches from York City Football Club Regional Talent Club. I'll let you guys introduce yourselves obviously more fully in a minute, but we're here today obviously to talk about women and girls in football, to get some really interesting insights into your roles at the talent club and your kind of thoughts and opinions on working with girls in football, and obviously for Gemma and Jill working potentially as women in football again. Okay, so I know firsthand you've got some fantastic experiences and insights to share, so I'm really looking forward to hearing from you all in a bit more depth. Okay, so I guess the starting point, if each of you in turn wouldn't mind just kind of introducing yourself, so you know your name and your role at the RTC, and maybe a little bit of background as to how you came into that position. So Jill, I guess if you wouldn't mind starting, please.
Yeah, of course. Jill Stacey. So I'm the female football officer at York City Football Club Foundation, which also contains the technical director at the regional talent club role. I've been coaching now roughly for about 16 years, which seems like a long time. But coaching since I was 16. Came out of a similar program, which was the Centre of Excellence up in Newcastle, and just developed through that program a love of working with young people and a want to try and help others develop, and work my way through Newcastle's foundation programs as a player and then as a coach as well. Ultimately making a move about 18 months ago to head up the program here at York.
Perfect, thank you, Jill. Gemma, if you wouldn't mind obviously introducing yourself now, please.
Yeah, so my name's Gemma Huskins. I am the under-10 lead coach at the RTC. This is my third season as a technical coach, always stayed in the foundation phase. My background in coaching, I worked abroad for a few years, came back when I started my UEFA B and got recommended applying for the RTC, and thankfully it's been a really nice 3 seasons.
Fantastic, thank you, Gemma. And then obviously last but by no means least, Dale.
Hi, I'm Dale Forsdyke. So I head up the science and the medical provision at the RTC. Slightly different role. I'm there to support the real superstars of the show, which are the players and the coaches. I've been working in the development programme for probably over 10 years now in various different guises, working for York City RTC, the FA, and in WSL football as well. And thoroughly enjoy just being able to support the development of these girls as people, but also as athletes.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, guys. So 3 fantastic guests, all slightly different areas of expertise, probably slightly different backgrounds, and hopefully contribute to a really interesting discussion in terms of women and girls in football. So I guess just to start us off, Jill, some people might not be fully aware of what the regional talent programme is. So I wonder if you could give us a little bit of background about York City RTC in terms of how it fits in, you know, in the national picture, and then also, if you can, kind of summarising your philosophies, what you aim to achieve as a centre.
Yeah, of course. So for those that don't know, the RTCs are the Girls Talent Pathway, so run and overseen by the FA. York City RTC is one of 13 Tier 1 RTCs up and down the country. I think there's roughly 32 in total, ranging from Tier 1, Tier 2 and Tier 3. And basically, we look to work with and identify talented females and put them through a technical, tactical, psychological, physical programming aimed at developing them as holistically as possible, and moving them through age groups starting at the minute from under 10 through to under 16, and hopefully trying to develop players who may go on to play for the Lionesses in the future.
Yeah.
And,
sorry, go on.
Yeah, sorry. For the club, if we talk about our philosophy, so our mission statement is to fulfil elite female potential. So I mean that's quite a broad sort of a headline, if you like, but we want to try and develop the players as holistically as possible, with their all-round development, not just as footballers but as athletes and people, and try and help them in terms of their pathway, wherever they want to go on. So whether they want to go on and have a career playing at any level, or whether they, like myself, Gemma and Dale, want to go on and work in any of these disciplines that are available now for female footballers.
Fantastic, thank you. I think that's a really important point, just to kind of reiterate, in terms of that this programme, I guess, is not just about developing footballers, but people, potentially the next generation of coaches, of teammates, of students, whatever it might be. And I think that's a really important point that you've summed up really, really well there, Jill. So thank you. I guess something else that might be quite, again, useful for people who might not be aware of the RTC system is just to kind of get to a bit of an idea of what an average, if there is such thing as an average week, but what that might look like. So again, I know you all work in slightly different areas. So Gemma, I wonder if you could kind of give us an overview of what the foundation phase looks like. So that's obviously the younger players, so kind of up to under 12s probably, isn't it?
Yeah, so in the younger age groups, the foundation phase, we do things a little bit differently. We have 2 training sessions a week, 4 hours in total. So within that, that's 3 hours of technical. So that's working with me and the assistant coach out on the grass. And then 1 hour of that is PPC, with the PPC team that Dale heads up. And then we play in the York Youth Boys League. So that typically is 1 game every other weekend. So we don't play every weekend. We might have a few friendlies in there, but typically it's every other weekend playing a match.
Spot on, thank you, Gemma. And again, Jill, I wonder if you can give us kind of the overview of what it might look like for the older age groups of the 14s and 16s.
Yeah, of course. So it is similar to what the foundation phase players go through. However, we have an extra session a week on. So the under 14s and the under 16s, usually referred to as youth development phase, they have 3 sessions per week. Again, one of those is physical performance coaching, and we also incorporate some performance analysis and some individual learning activities into that week. So with that, we give the girls a little bit of ownership over their individual learning plans, which, if anyone's familiar with sort of boys academies or girls RTCs, all the players have individual learning plans with specific targets bespoke to them. We give the players a bit of ownership over how they go about developing those targets, specifically for half an hour on one of the training sessions that links in with performance analysis as well. But they get the same amount of contact time as the foundation phase, just with some additional sessions, hopefully more tailored to the older age groups, designed to try and develop them again holistically as possible, in their sort of at their age and stage appropriate to where they are.
Fantastic, thank you. And I know we'll probably go into a little bit more detail about the rationale behind some of those differences a bit later probably. And just finally again to Dale, I know Gemma and Jill have already kind of touched on how PPC incorporates into the foundation and youth phase, but I wonder again if you could just give us an overview of what an average week might look like for you and your team.
Yeah, so if I deal with the PPC, that physical performance coaching that's been mentioned, each of our teams gets an hour a week that's bespoke to them, that's age appropriate for them. Our real vision is about developing and enhancing overall athleticism. So it's not just about enhancing physical qualities, i.e. getting strong, getting them faster. It's just about, and more importantly, about how they move. So there's lots of movement coaching in there to develop those really good, robust movement patterns that then underpin the more intense sport-specific movement patterns. So we do that. We do develop the physical qualities. So players do get fitter, but they'll learn how to move better with that, which is really important, them going forward and developing. In addition to that, what we tend to provide is, with my staff and the coaches, we deliver the injury prevention strategies. So we want to keep players with high levels of availability, injury-free. So the coaches have got more of a selection of players. The players have more exposure on the pitch, equals better time or better exposure to develop. So we do the injury prevention warm-ups. We run the FIFA 11 Plus and the FIFA 11 Plus kids across the programme. And we also fit injury prevention into the cool down as well before we do some pitch-based stretching. In addition to that, the players are given or empowered to create their own recovery scales. They're empowered to really think about how well they're preparing and how ready they are to turn up for training. If unfortunately you happen to be an injured player, then you will be seen usually one-to-one by a member of staff, where that staff will work with you as their case through the return to sport process to hopefully make sure that you return to training and then return to sport physically and psychologically ready to do so.
Perfect. Thank you, Dale. So I guess the difficult task, I guess, of trying to sum up everything that you three have just said, because you've captured so much in terms of what the programme is about. So obviously your philosophies are about fulfilling elite female potential, but it's about more than football. So, you can see there some of the key words that I've picked out, holistic development, age-appropriate learning, empowerment. I think that those seem to be kind of key things which run throughout the programme. And no matter whether, I guess, you're, the under-10s coach or whether you're the lead PPC coach, I guess those values, or I can certainly see that those values are kind of lived through you every day. So thank you very much. That's a really, really good and interesting kind of start in terms of the background to where we're at. So I guess the first big topic, and it is really broad, and it's intentionally really broad because I know you guys have loads of different ideas and different kind of ways of working with girls in football. So I'm going to kick things off. I'm going to come to you, Dale, and I know there might be some kind of important elements from the physical standpoint here. Is there anything that you do differently when you're working with girls as opposed to boys? And that might obviously depend on the age. So it's a really broad question, but I'm gonna leave it over to you now, if that's okay, Dale.
The answer is no, but yes, there are some clear physical differences that we need to be aware of, monitor, and maybe take an intervention of if that shows up. So obviously we do know that girls mature faster than boys, which means they'll hit their growth spurt quicker, their peak height velocity, at the time where they're growing the quickest. And that happens typically around 2 years earlier than boys, at around 11 to 12 years. Now, what that means is coaches who are involved in under 11s, under 12s, maybe under 14s, really need to start recognizing this is a real living phase that each player is going to have to go through and work through, whilst hopefully maintaining their availability and development on the pitch. Now, the growth spurt is typically where the body's growing faster than ever before. It starts with the arms and legs before the trunk. I like to think of it as, using the analogy, it's like learning to drive in a bigger, more powerful car, but with no manual. Nobody gives you any instructions of how to drive this thing. So, for one, we can expect to see some adolescent awkwardness. Certainly, people think it can happen to about a quarter of all athletes. But if you've got a squad of, let's say, 16 players, that's 4 players that may experience this adolescent awkwardness, a loss of coordination, the change in the center of mass in the body, which then has those performance-based issues associated with it. And there's obviously scope for an increased risk of niggles, irritation, and injuries during that side. So for me, it's about, again, recognizing, creating a really open and safe environment where players can share when they're going through these periods of growth, if they do have something wrong with them, and if they have got a niggle, or if they have got a legitimate high levels of pain with certain movements, that actually there's someone there that can provide some robust advice and take that seriously. There's obviously, accompanied with that, are sex-specific changes due to puberty. So we're talking these girls, the onset of menarche, we've got the increased fat mass. They tend, and our players tend to be quad dominant, which means their quads are really, really strong, whereas their hip muscles and hamstrings tend to be less so. There's anatomical changes with that regarding hip width and other things, which all then kind of comes together to affect their movement strategies. So when they're going through puberty and peak height velocity, how they land, how they change direction is altered. and that needs time and patience and input to be able to almost re-educate those movements. But together, what it does is it puts these adolescent girls at particular risk of injury. So if you're working with age groups, with any girl players, what you're thinking about is you need to focus on, well, what are you doing proactively so they move well, and what are you doing to prevent injuries? So in our program, we do lots of things around, well, let's address that quad dominance. Let's work on your hamstrings and your hip muscles. Let's do some routine exposure to good landing mechanics. Let's work on your core and core control in dynamic movements. And all of that is underpinned by good quality movement skills. And for anyone listening in, that there's some programs that are out there that are really time and resource efficient, such as the FIFA 11 Plus, the FIFA 11 Plus Kids, which are great. They reduce injuries, but they also get you fitter. And there's some free apps like the Get Set app you can get on the phone, which gives you some exercises to drip feed some of these exercises that might address some of these physical issues around puberty and peak height velocity.
Perfect, thank you, Dale. So really, really detailed answer then. But I think importantly, obviously, there's the potential that not all coaches will have, the same resource and time as you. So actually, highlighting those kind of key resources they can use is really, really helpful. So thank you for that. I guess I'm going to kind of bounce over to Gemma and Jill now. So it might be slightly less defined than what Dale has spoken about in terms of maybe some of the physiological differences between boys and girls. But I guess I'll go to Gemma first. Is there anything that you can think of specifically that you do with girls that you maybe wouldn't do with boys, and for whatever reason? And is there anything that you can talk to us about in that respect?
So I think as a coach, it's really important that whether it's my under 10 girls or the under 11 girls, they could still be completely different, have completely different needs, personalities. So that comparison between girls and boys, whenever someone asks me that question, I think it's more on the individuals that are in front of you. But I think the common themes that I've seen, especially in the foundation phase, has been their independence. If you give them anything like leading the cool down, we have all of the age groups leading their warm-ups as player-led. So as a coach, it makes it a lot easier working with the girls, that I've seen, to have that player-led experience, because they're so independent and they want that ownership, and they like, going into the coach's zone, getting the equipment out. They like that ownership and having that respect. So it's really good as a coach to challenge that side of it, and having the girls have a real impact on the session and empower that, and not say, I'm the coach, you're the players, because them as in their journey, it's really important for us to embrace that independence. And then following on from that, I'm sure Jill will vouch for this as well, they're very inquisitive. So you've got to have every single bit in your session plan. There's got to be a reason for it, because someone will ask a question and on the spot, you need to know the answer. So they like to know why. If you're telling them about a new position or saying that you need to improve this, they're like, why? Why do you think this? Where? When do you want me to do that? So it's so nice as a coach, and that really links in with the individual learning plan as well. So it gives us that platform to say, this is a bit of guidance, now take it into whatever learning environment you want to do, however you want to take this on. But yeah, I'd say that's the most common themes. I'm sure Jill will dive into it a bit more.
Yeah.
I think what Gemma and Dale have both said there are like really great examples of, and Gemma and Dale both know that I love a quote. So players don't know or care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I think it's becoming a bit more prevalent in the men's game, but I think in the female game, I think players want, like Gemma said, they want to know the whys, they want to know, how is this going to benefit me, my teammates, like, why are you asking us to do this, what capacity are you asking us to do this in, and how's that going to impact me? So I think as long as when you're working with those players, you've got a thought process and you've got a vision for that, they really buy into you as a coach, whether it's the physical performance team, the technical coaches, the physios. If they know what you've planned for them, or what the information that you're giving them, if they know that it's going to help them, they buy into you as a person and as a coach. And I think, like, Gemma must have been reading my notes there, but giving the girls those chances to lead and giving them the chance to have those experiences, again, really buys into developing them as young people as well as developing them as footballers.
Yeah, spot on. I really like what you said, Gemma, just to kind of open your bit up where you said coach who's in front of you. Dale, you've got your hand up. I don't know if you want to kind of add on to what Jill was saying.
No, 100%. We're really fortunate, and I think it's because we really work on this with the players that we have inquisitive players. We want the girls to understand what are they doing and why they're doing that. They need to know the rationale, the benefit, and once they see that value, then suddenly their engagement is absolutely fantastic. So that's where we may find out these things, that actually girls tend to be more coachable, more cooperative, and something we work with them on is being reflective and understanding where they are. One observation I've got from working with girls, and in comparison to boys as well, is around feedback. And when you're working with girls, you've got to really, really think about the tone and explain what feedback is. Feedback is not good or bad. It's just feedback, and it's there to hopefully help you develop. And I think when I've seen it been done poorly before, is girls internalizing feedback and taking that personally. So scoping what feedback is and what it is there for is a really important thing to maybe take forwards.
That's great. Thank you very much, all of you, for that. I mean, I think some of the key things I'm picking up on there, all of the, there's a lot of debate around, boys and girls, and how do we, a lot of coaches who are maybe coming to coach girls for the first time always talk, what should I do differently? And all of the answers that you've just kind of touched on there, none of it is necessarily technical or tactical. It's, the game is the same. Football is the same, whether it's boys or girls or, whatever. The game is the game, but maybe some of the differences that you're highlighting are more to do with the social side, the empowerment, the inquisitive nature, which I think is a really, really important point, in that, going back again to what Gemma said, coach who's in front of you. And there might be, for some boys, this might work really well. This isn't kind of exclusive to girls, but some of the key differences might be in the social corner, not in the technical corner. The game is the same. You don't need to change what you coach, I guess, but it might be some of the how. Go on, Dale, sorry.
And now's never been a better time to be a girl playing football in terms of your prospects. But let's not forget that a lot of the girls who have been through these systems have faced really quite challenging dual career demands, which is, you're just playing football, that's just a pastime. What you're going to do is your real job. Whereas now, hopefully that's being ironed out a little bit in terms of, do you know what? You can make a living out of being a professional footballer. And that's a real kind of 360 turn, isn't it? In terms of where the game was maybe 10 years ago, when I started being involved in the talent pathways. So with these demands, we need to think about developing the person. What's going on at school? They'll have exams, they'll have mock exams, GCSEs. What's their next stage of their academic development? They may want to progress the level of their football. They may aspire to be, yes, an England international, but a full-time professional, and that's an option for some players. And also that idea of feeling a bit different than their non-sport peers as well. And how do you all manage that to balance so they come to us in a safe environment where they're supported by their teammates and coaches so they can focus on their development?
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you very much. And I guess, again, another kind of key question that's linked to all of what we've talked about, maybe slightly different wording. Are there any specific challenges, and then on the flip side of that, rewards that you guys can think of? Again, Jill, I don't know if you want to kind of open up with this one. Is there anything specific you can think of, challenging, rewarding, that might be a bit different or specific to your role?
I think sort of the challenges that girls face will always be the stigma behind kind of playing football and what that brings them, a little bit like what Dale touched on around the peer group. I think as girls get towards that youth development phase age, they differ from boys in that they don't necessarily want to be picked out to be extra special or someone who's striving in that positive way, where we see that as coaches as like praising or rewarding fantastic sort of behaviours or results or whatever it might be, whereas the girls might see that as they're sort of standing out from the crowd, and that's not something that all girls want at that age. They sort of just want to not be noticed as much and kind of make sure that they get by, rather than saying, do you know what, I'm really good at this, and I want to be really proud of it and show everyone just how good I am. And hopefully we're getting a bit of a sea change now in terms of celebrating female role models and celebrating successes that female players, female coaches, females just working in football have had, that younger girls will start to feel empowered to say, do you know what, I am good at this, and I'm 14, but I don't care if I stand out from everyone else. I want to be the best, and that's sort of something that we try and drip feed into the youth development phase girls. To it's be yourself, be you. You're the only person who can do you as well as you. So don't try and hide that. Just try and be the most authentic version of yourself, which is something that Gemma said yesterday, which I really loved. Be the most authentic version of you that you can possibly be. And it's not easy for people, but I think with support and hopefully with programs like ours, the girls can feel comfortable to share that with their teammates, with their coaches, and we just get positive young people coming out the other side of our programs.
Yeah, fantastic. And I guess that goes back to your ultimate philosophy in terms of that holistic development. It's the technical and tactical is definitely important, but how are we developing these girls and young women as people? So yeah, fantastic. Thank you. Gemma, sorry, go on, Jill.
No, we haven't really touched on the technical and tactical, and they are really important parts of the game, especially when you're coming into the youth development phase, that girls understand roles and responsibilities within certain setups. But I think if they feel comfortable in an environment, that learning and that development will come hand in hand. If they're not comfortable and they aren't sort of feeling like they can express themselves, then I think the development will be sort of stuttered by that. Whereas if we can have that holistic approach and they do feel comfortable to express themselves, they're more likely to say, I don't understand that, what's my role here, what do you want from me? Whereas if they don't feel comfortable asking that, then we can't get towards that point of helping them with the technical and tactical side of the game.
Yeah, spot on. I mean, I don't think I could say it better myself. So thank you, Gemma. I don't know if you've got anything to add to this, particularly from a foundation phase point of view.
Yeah, I think me and Jill had a few conversations over the season that it's been quite scary and eye-opening. A lot of the maybe body image or low self-esteem issues that are coming out even now at the foundation phase. We've got TikTok, we've got all the apps coming out, and it's really relaying some negative self-confidence issues on younger and younger players. It seems to be, as the years are going on, it's younger players that are being affected, and it's our job, number one, to set that environment. And it is, there is a theme of girls not trusting or taking a little bit longer to think, right, you actually do care about me, and opening up. But when they do, it's about setting that environment as a coach that it's okay to make mistakes and it's okay to be vulnerable on the pitch, whether that's in a technical, tactical point of view, but also the social, psychological. And it's really important to me. I'm very big on the social, psychological side. I always look at my session plans, I'm like, right, but is that fun enough? And I know that some people may look at that and think, yeah, but we're in an RTC, it should be, like drills and everything. But ultimately, it's about these young people and making them into the best people and players that they can be. And it's so important for me to set that environment that they can make mistakes, that they can ask questions, they can stop in the middle of the session and say, I don't know what I'm doing. And that's going to be no judgment. And that is something that I really pride myself on. I'm really proud of, the RTC, and we really do set that culture of being who you are and making mistakes completely okay. So yeah, that would be the main thing from me.
Yeah, brilliant. Jill, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to sort of reiterate that point that Gemma's making, that if you dropped into any of Gemma's under 10 sessions, you would see in action everything that she's talking about. And I think that's really important, that right now these are just sort of words, and they can become empty words if our actions and our everyday sort of life on the pitch doesn't live up to what we're saying. But Gem's under 10 players, just as an example, because she's here talking. There's other coaches who do a fantastic job in the RTC as well. But they will ask lots and lots of questions. They don't stop asking questions. They make loads of mistakes. They're comfortable with what they're asked to do, and if they don't understand, again, they'll ask more questions. It's just a fantastic environment, and you can see when they graduate from that under 10 age group, they're coming out as really confident young people. And it's hard to think actually that young girl's 10 years old and she's holding a conversation with me like our parents would. They just develop really well by being given this platform of understanding, of openness, of being able to just be who they are. And I think Gemma and our co-coach Dan do that really well in a first experience of our RTC environment. It's just such a fantastic way to introduce them to what an elite level of female football looks like.
Yeah, fantastic. Gemma, back to you.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if I was, sat listening to this, not involved in RTC, how would I put that into my session? So I think it comes from not looking for the perfect answer when we're throwing out a question to our players, not thinking, I know in my head the specific answer that I want them to say. It's about being open as a coach as well, thinking they could think of something that maybe triggers a thought in someone else's head or my own head. So it's about having those open discussions. If someone, makes a suggestion and it's not quite right, it's encouraging them, saying, that is a fantastic idea. Can you explain us why? What is that like on the pitch? What do you think? It's about their reflections as much as us putting, a question on a whiteboard as they're coming in. What has been your favourite part about this week? And there's so many different themes that come out of it. It's about really letting yourself let go of the session and allowing them to say, this is what I'm feeling, and this is my reflection and my feedback to you as a coach, which makes it easier for them to trust and ask those questions and be really inquisitive.
Yeah, fantastic, real practical advice there. And I think that can, from experience, that's quite difficult to do as a coach, letting go of, some, as coaches, we like to kind of control everything, and that's kind of in the nature of the job to some respect. But particularly when you're working with the younger age groups, that might be even more difficult, because they are 9 and 10 years old. But that is, I think, really valuable advice for coaches who are potentially listening to this. So thank you very much. I guess again, just trying to summarize what we're talking about. A lot of what you're talking about, it strikes me that you're talking about kind of responding to societal pressures, around body image and self-confidence, and puberty and growth spurts, and all these kind of things that go with not just girls in football but girls in society more broadly. So it is really, for me, really refreshing and really fantastic to hear how a program which could quite rightly just kind of hone in on the football aspects, everything that you're talking about, I don't think we've really even talked about football so far. It's just been the people and the kids that are at the heart of what you do. So I think that is, for me, fantastic to hear about, and I'm sure that there are people listening to this who are taking some inspiration from that. And I think that probably leads us on quite nicely to our kind of next big topic, and that is the importance of female role models. So again, I'm going to ask Jill to kind of kick us off in this topic, if you like. I know it's something you're quite passionate about. So again, I'm going to leave this really, really broad, but over to you. What's your thoughts on female role models? Are they important? Why are they important? Over to you.
I'm going to start with another quote. So if you can see it, you can be it. And I think that is so important, that being able to see female role models wherever. So like whatever you're interested in, whether it's sport, whether it's politics, whether it's fashion, just whatever it might be, that you can see someone who looks like you in a position of power, if you like, or someone who's making decisions. It's just so important that we have the right female role models in front of female players, female athletes, just females in general. So it was really important to me when I sort of came into the RTC role that we started to try and have more female role models in front of the girls. We were predominantly a male-dominated staff group when I kind of came into post, and I made it sort of one of the first things that I try to do, and like, where are the female coaches, where are the female performance coaches, where are female physios, who are these people, can we identify them, can we try and bring them into the organisation, can we then keep hold of them so that You know, if you want to be a physical performance coach, you can see, oh, there's a female coach who coaches me, so I can do that. Is there a female analyst? Is there females in the management team? I think that's just so important that girls can see they can do anything that they want to do, no matter like where they come from, what it is they're interested in, and where they are now. They've got a chance to progress, if you like, in football, in sport, just in their careers in general.
Perfect, thank you. So you've said kind of when you came in there was a lot of kind of male coaches, and I know that a lot of the male coaches who work there are absolutely fantastic coaches. But what are some of the kind of strategies, I guess, that you put in place, thinking really broadly about kind of the environment and the culture? Because it strikes me that not only do you need women involved to be in kind of these positions of power in terms of coaches and representation, but is there anything that you do specifically to kind of centralize these people's voices, to really put them at the forefront? Do you understand what I'm asking? I don't know if I really understand. Do you know what I mean? So what kind of strategies do you do to address kind of culture and environment, and not just getting people there to be kind of tokenistically there, but how do you address kind of culture, environment, I guess is what I'm asking.
I think just making sure that everyone's got a voice, so that if you've got an opinion, you are it's valid and it's listened to and it's taken on board, no matter if you're really new to the environment or if you've been here for 10 years. Your opinion is valid to us, and we will try and just ensure that whatever your feedback is, whether that's on the programme, on your role, we'll take that into account, and we'll try and ensure that you get the best possible experience as well as trying to develop the females that we have. And we've got some fantastic male allies who are brilliant at promoting what female staff do, what the girls in the programme can achieve. So yeah, it's just trying to develop everyone to ensure that yes, we want female coaches or female staff, but we want the right staff. And if that member of staff is a male and they are the right person for that role, then that's fantastic. If they're a female and the right person for their role, even better. The more females that we can have in the programme, great. But the male allies are so important as well, that they understand how important their role is in building other females up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to kind of bounce over to Dale now, I guess, as one of those kind of aforementioned, male allies who works in, women and girls football. I don't know if you can kind of speak a little bit on what Jill's just been saying there.
Oh, 100%. This, the girls need to see people like them, and not, like I said, not just women who have played the game as coaches, but other women that have come on board in some of the other support staff positions. Because not all of our players, unfortunately, will make professionals and will play for England. So how do we keep these in the game? How do we keep growing the female game so that the girls in our programme are the next ones that work with England, but as a performance analyst, or they work with England as the physiotherapist? So it's about not just nurturing them as players, but I think we've got a real ethos and responsibility in terms of how do we grow the female form of the game, so that these girls in our programme can fill in these, now let's call them power positions, but then act as role models themselves. Where I've, so I look after or coordinate the injury side as well. And what I've tended to do before is when a player has had a particularly nasty injury, I've got a network of international players, professional players that I can call on who have already said, actually, I'll act as a social model for some of these girls, because, I'm not female. I haven't had a severe injury. But lo and behold, I know lots of people have. And when we've used that before, that's worked really nicely for our players to feel supported when they're injured and connected with people like themselves.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. Again, I'm gonna bounce over to Gemma now. So I know, your age group, you're talking under 10s, under 11s. They're by no means kind of on the next step to being a coach or a physio, whatever else it is. But what do you think about this idea of female role models? Is it just about coaches, or is that something that you actually think about in terms, you've talked a lot about empowering your players. Is that something that actually comes into your thinking for your under 10s players, that actually this 10-year-old girl can be a role model for her teammates?
Yeah, so this is something that we've spoke about. If you instill it under 10s, hopefully by the time they progress into the under 16s, it'll just be natural. And I feel like there's a massive stigma around like females, competing against each other, and it is a unique environment, being in a competitive regional talent club. However, there's such a strong sense of empowering within the team. So it doesn't mean that, one of my under 10s role models might be they play with someone else in the team. It's really important that we give them the opportunities to be role models to each other. So a recent example, as we've been online, I know there's been some negatives, but some of the massive positives we've seen, weirdly, because we haven't been around each other, but the social side. I've done sessions where, some of the prizes or to keep engaged, it's been a letter from a campmate in a recent I'm a Celeb themed ball mastery. And the prize was someone who'd been really supportive, got the chance to get a letter from her teammate. So it was just someone posting in the group chat, maybe, I think XYZ player is really funny. And to them, that's amazing for the person who's giving the advice, giving the nice comment, because it's saying, we need to be nice to each other, we need to build people up. But also for the players receiving it, thinking, wow, someone really thinks that about me, and that's going to uplift my spirits. And that's going to push me on to thinking more positively. And I always do that. I always empower them. I know Jill's mentioned, we have a friendly 20 minutes at the end of each match. And I give that ownership to the girls to plan the team, plan the rotation. Sometimes it's absolute chaos, but sometimes it goes smoothly. And they actually deliver that information back. So it's not, they understand that they have the authority and power, to say, I am happy with my decisions and I'm going to share it with the group. The public speaking comes out there. I'm being authoritative. It's not anyone being bossy. It's celebrated, and I am sharing with you my ideas, and we've got full backing from the rest of the team. So I think, especially in the under 10s, making sure that they understand that the themes of role models doesn't have to come from the likes of, the staff team. It also comes from being a teammate and being a good one.
Yeah. Dale, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, we do a lot to promote, being a good role model and looking towards positive role models. If we try and show footage, we try and show footage of women's football or them playing football. I still think there's a long, long way to go before this becomes like a normal narrative. Lots of girls who I ask about who's your favourite player, or in a PPC session, we worked on fitness superpowers. What's your fitness superpower? What player shares your own fitness superpower? And a lot of them were still drawing upon male players, which, yes, their answers were absolutely right. They'd astutely picked a good example, but I just felt a little bit sad that they weren't picking still, the positive lioness role models that they could do, or within within the staff team they could have picked up on. So I think the more that we can, promote them being a good role model, and then exposure to positive other female role models will hopefully make sure that when we do ask them for examples, well, what do you like? Who do you like? Why do you like them? They can point to people like them, which should help with their aspirations.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Dale. Jill, I know you've got your hand up as well.
Yeah, just sort of wanted to continue what Gemma was saying around trying to empower the girls to be their own role models. Something that we started in the lockdown period was trying to hand bits of ownership over to the youth development phase to lead on some of the foundation phase activities. So with some help and some support around how to plan and what to plan and who's going to do sort of what roles on the day. Our under 14s delivered activities to the under 10s, and the 16s delivered to the 11s and 12s, and that sort of experience for them, I think it highlighted to us as staff some people's super strengths as people, something that we'd really not seen before, and a lot of the staff were talking afterwards like, wow, that X quality out of X person, I hadn't seen them demonstrate that before. So something that we had wanted to do on the pitch, and we have got a few of the under 16 players who do come down and help Gemma with the under 10s, and we're sort of trying to create the next generation of staff, whatever discipline that might be, but trying to start that early so that some of the under 14s might go, do you know what, I really like this. I really like leading other people. I really like giving instructions. I like being able to help a little bit. What sort of I look at my journey, I was kind of doing that a little bit at under 14s, under 15s, and that's where I picked up that bug of, I think I want to be a football coach as a profession. So if we can kind of light that spark in someone, and they go away and potentially do, the new playmaker course, and they come back kind of saying, look, can we come and volunteer? Can we come and give up our time to help some of the younger groups? Then, by the time they get to 17, 18, 19, hopefully they'll be quite well-rounded, quite articulate, and able to lead their own sessions and groups. And we're sort of developing our own staff who can then be the next generation of role models. Even as a 12 and 13-year-old, we're thinking of sort of 4 or 5 years ahead, if you like, and how we can help cultivate that development of females.
And am I right in thinking that this is something I saw on your Twitter, so this might not be correct, that you put some of the 16-year-old girls, or you helped them with their playmaker course? Am I right in thinking that?
Yeah, so we worked with the local county FA and the high performance centre, women's high performance centre staff. So Sue Smith and Claire Robinson came and delivered a kind of get into coaching workshop. So trying to again put different female role models in front of them who've gone on the coaching pathway, and then directed them towards where they could go and do their playmaker course, and what, not just sort of the impact that would have on other people, but I think, like, looking back now on all of our careers, if as football coaches and as players, if we knew now what we did when we were 15, 16, a lot of us would probably be thinking, do you know what, I'll be a lot better player, and I might have gone a bit further. So just trying again to think about how that can help their development as people, but also as players. So if they can understand a skill or a tactical element of the game, and they can then explain that to somebody else, the chances are when they come to maybe implement that on the pitch, they're going to understand that a little bit better than someone who's just been told that and trying to go about it. So that's kind of dual sort of thought process behind, again, developing them as individuals and as holistically as possible, but it also has an impact on the technical side of the performance game as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Gemma, I know you've got your hand up.
Yeah, it was just kind of like a summarising point that it comes full circle, that you hear, scary stories from people who've been, dropped from academies, or they've had a bad experience. It leads to them not being involved in physical activity in later life. So it's also thinking about, have they got the tools? Are they, what are they feeling? Are they having a good experience? So that hopefully when they get older, they're still involved in some sort of physical activity, whether it's not football, whether they've taken up something else, or they're encouraging, their potential future families to be involved. So it's kind of like, we are all role models, but we're hoping that they will be role models in the future, so that ultimately female football will continue to grow and people being involved in physical activity will continue to grow into the future.
But I guess, again, just to kind of summarise, I think what Gemma was saying, that's a really, really good point in terms of what you were saying before about that coming full circle. And, you're seeing that, again, the holistic development, linking back to what Jill said about the philosophies, and it's not just about this 10-year-old girl where she is now, but where she might be in 10, 20 years' time, whether she goes on to be a professional football player or not. That's, not really important in some respects. Obviously is as a talent development program. Dale.
I just really like Gemma's sentiments, and I think we get wrapped so much in a program and the here and now that often we can lose track of the bigger picture. Ultimately, yes, we want these players to continue in the game and hit the levels, that the highest possible levels that they can get to. But, that might be 5 years' time, 10 years' time. But what about them in 20, 30 years' time? Are there still people who have an appetite for still wanting to keep in the game, but also be physically active, so they avoid any of the chronic conditions that are associated with, dropping out of the game, not being engaged with physical activity?
Yeah, and I guess not just for them as well, but if they go on to be mothers, aunties, what impact they can have, and they can then be a female, a female role model in terms of them as an adult as well as them as a 10-year-old. Jill, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I think what Dale's saying there is like really important, and to also recognise that a small percentage who come through the pathway will make it to the top level. So it's important to recognise what about everyone else and what about that experience that they're getting. So of course we want to try and push everyone to be the best that they can possibly be, and you know, we'd love to see all of them go progressing into WSL sort of standards, but we know from previous experience, and we know from other programs that there's only a small percentage of them that will go on to play at that level. So it's really important what everybody else gets from that. So like the life skills that they get, the experiences that we've given them, the chances and opportunities to, you know, realise what they want to go on to do and who they want to go on to be, I think are some of the things that people assume are a byproduct of the environment. And for me, they're not a byproduct. They're something that we have to work really hard on creating and cultivating and making sure that the environment's right for them to flourish in that way.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And again, really, really good, I guess, summary, and always linking back into your philosophies of the program as a whole and the holistic development, and that fact that, you know, their development as people is not a byproduct. That is, in some respects, is the core of what you do, I guess. And obviously football is the vehicle for doing that, but it is about developing these young girls as people, as teammates, as athletes, and so on and so forth. So I guess